Book review, hoping to help questions value of volunteers. Some do it to get into heaven, and some do it to get into medical school. Some do it because everyone else is doing it. Whatever the motivation, the number of healthcare volunteers heading from developed to developing countries has soared in recent years, with commentators straggling behind debating the merits of the stampede. The reasons to applaud are self-evident: all the old epidemics are compounded by all the new ones, and the health-related fallout of wars and natural disasters never ends. If both skilled and unskilled labor can help, then surely those who provide such labor should do good, feel good and learn much. Not necessarily, critics say. Some would concur instead with an opinion published by a Somali blogger in The Guardian in 2013 and quoted by the sociologist Judith Lasker in Hoping to Help: The Promises and Pitfalls of Global Health Volunteering. The developing world has become a playground for the redemption of privileged souls looking to atone for global injustices by escaping the vacuity of modernity and globalization. Read an excerpt. And indeed, as Dr. Lasker watched groups of American and Canadian volunteers in matching T-shirts surging through the Port-au-Prince airport 2 years after Haiti's disastrous 2010 earthquake, she was reminded of nothing so much as the weekly Saturday turnover at American timeshare vacation resorts. Many scholars have discussed the theory behind global aid and the various perils in its execution. Dr. Lasker, a professor at Lehigh University, delivers instead a straightforward, data-driven review of a small health-related fraction of the enterprise, aiming to answer a few basic questions. Do volunteers help or hurt? She asks. In what ways? It turns out these questions cannot be answered, at least not very precisely. Still, anyone contemplating a volunteer stint is likely to be interested in Dr. Lasker's results, which amount to a sort of de facto best practices manual. Tens of thousands of religious and secular institutions now send hundreds of thousands of health volunteers from the United States out into the world, generating close to an estimated $1 billion worth of unpaid labor. Volunteers include experienced medical professionals and individuals who can provide only elbow grease. Between these extremes of competence are the hordes of students in the health professions, among whom global volunteering has become immensely popular. Dr. Lasker presents data from a few hundred programs, gleaned from several surveys, dozens of interviews and some brief trips of her own. She did not look at large organizations like Doctors Without Borders, which are organized differently and generally do not use unpaid volunteers. Most of the programs she considers sponsor volunteer assignments that are quite short, lasting weeks rather than months, despite almost universal agreement among hosting communities that longer stays are much more helpful. The hosts generally have expectations that are simple enough: volunteers should do as they are asked, know enough about their destination not to violate local norms, women in shorts, grumbled one African social worker, and understand that dirt, dust and discomfort are part of the experience. But even well-behaved and unremarkably clad volunteers may cause eddies of unintended disturbance. Students may take advantage of the circumstances to attempt tasks well beyond their expertise. Seasoned professionals may cling to standards of practice that are irrelevant or impossible to sustain in poor countries. Unskilled volunteers who do not speak the language may monopolize local personnel with their interpreting needs without providing much of value in return. Problems may lie with the structure of a program rather than the personnel. Volunteer projects may be choppy and discontinuous, one set of volunteers not knowing what the previous group was up to, and not able to leave suggestions for the next group. Medications may run out. Surgery may be performed with insufficient provisions for postoperative care.